The other night, I found myself sitting under the bright white lights of a dorm room lounge surrounded by a group of very diverse people. This group of people of different races, religions, genders, and ethnicities were debating the pros and cons of the 2016 presidential candidates, and surprisingly, many of us agreed with each other. On the other hand, there was a handful of people whose views differed from the majority. I do not particularly enjoy debating, especially when the topic is political, so I was able to simply observe the chaos surrounding me. People were yelling over each other to be heard, trying to convince the others whose views opposed their own to change sides. People were not attempting to understand the other side's views, resulting in a very heated debate. Watching all of this, I wondered why they could not just agree to disagree and use this experience to learn about other candidates or viewpoints. Each side was acting as though the other was physically attacking them when in reality that could not be further from the truth. Neither side was harming the other, so I will never understand why they could not just have a rational debate. Americans today have what is known as an entitlement mentality in many aspects of life. According to Merriam-Webster, entitlement is defined as the feeling or belief that you deserve to be given something, and mentality is defined as a mode or way of thought. When these two words are put together, they describe the current American way of thinking where people feel as though they have the right to be given what they desire. Tim Urban, author of Wait But Why, wrote an article for the Huffington Post about an imaginary woman named Lucy who suffers from the entitlement mentality. He argues that Lucy, who represents Generation Y, is both wildly ambitious and delusional. Generation Y has always been told that they are special, and because of this, they imagine their careers will be much more important than anybody else's career. When Lucy's career does not meet her very high expectations, she becomes unhappy, especially because social media allows her to see the success of her peers. Tim Urban's advice to Lucy, and therefore all of Generation Y, is to ignore everyone else. Other people's grass seeming greener is no new concept, but in today's image crafting world, other people's grass looks like a glorious meadow. The truth is that everyone else is just as indecisive, self-doubting, and frustrated as you are, and if you just do your thing, you will never have any reason to envy others. In our diverse and rapidly changing world, it is necessary that people take Urban's advice seriously and forget about what other people want or have achieved and focus only on what they want. Recently, abortion has been a major source of controversy among Americans. The central debate is over its legality, because many Americans are pro-life, where they feel that it is wrong to terminate a pregnancy, while others believe that the mother has the right to control her own body and determine the outcome of her pregnancy. The latter people are considered pro-choice, and I consider myself one of them for a multitude of reasons. Supporters of the pro-life campaign argue that abortion is equivalent to murder because they believe that human life begins at conception, which stems directly from individuals' religious beliefs. The Second Amendment states, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. By legally prohibiting abortion on the basis that life begins at conception, Congress would be establishing a law based on religion, and therefore revoking Americans' freedom of religion. Furthermore, beliefs are a very personal thing and differ among people, even among people within the same religion. There are laws that are meant for religion, and other laws that should be enforced by a government on society, and the two types differ greatly. For example, Muslims and Jews do not believe in eating pork, but they do not try to enforce this religious law on people outside of their religion. If Jews and Muslims organized on the basis that Congress should pass a law making the consumption of pork illegal, society, the government, and the media would laugh at the attempt. So, why is abortion any different? Pro-life supporters are attempting to instill their own religious beliefs in people who have different convictions than them, which is similar to the example where Jews and Muslims wanted to force their beliefs about pork on other people. When a woman terminates her pregnancy, it has absolutely no effect on anyone other than the mother, and in some cases, the father. If a person is opposed to abortion, then they will not be forced to undergo the procedure, but when someone believes that it is acceptable, they should not be forced to forego the procedure. People who are not involved in a situation have no right to make decisions for the involved parties. In this situation, pro-life supporters need to follow in the footsteps of Muslims and Jews and not care what people who follow different religions than them believe. These same problems are occurring with the issue of homosexuality and its legality in the United States of America. Similarly to abortion, homosexuality goes against the religion of many Americans, and they are outraged with not only the idea of two men or women being together, but also over the legalization of gay marriage. A homosexual couple does not have any effect on anyone, and if they believe that homosexuality is acceptable, then that is their right. When people see gay couples together, it offends them, but for me it is the opposite. Homosexual marriages still represent the same ideals as a heterosexual marriage: love and commitment. I may not want to witness a gay couple's public displays of affection, but I am not particularly interested in watching a man and a woman either. If another woman has an abortion or a gay couple is married, it has absolutely no effect on my life or on anyone else's, but many people still feel that others should be denied these rights. I understand that people have very strong beliefs, but it is not fair to force other people to comply with ideas that they do not agree with. When people are faced with the reality that they cannot place their beliefs on another person, they become overly sensitive to what people around them are doing when they should be focusing on themselves. This desire to control what others can do and how other people affect ourselves does not only appear in politics, but also in the daily life of many Americans. Individuals no longer concentrate on what they have and how they are improving, but rather on the lives of their neighbors, which is the keeping up with the Joneses idea. If your neighbor buys a new BMW, other people in the neighborhood will begin to buy new foreign luxury cars. When a family friend digs a pool in their backyard, you might install a pool and a hot tub as to not be outdone. The keeping up with the Joneses mentality produced an outcome that otherwise would not have occurred. For your family, the money could have been better spent on an educational vacation to the African safari, or even better, investing in a college fund. Because there was such a focus on what other people had, an investment was made before all the consequences of that action were thought through. Individuals let the desires of other people control what they do, and this obsession has led to political controversy and the deterioration of personal desires. Since kindergarten, we are taught that sharing is caring and not to be selfish, but in these situations, being selfish is necessary for personal satisfaction. If a woman wants to terminate her pregnancy, be selfish. The termination will not bring harm to anyone, so they do not have the right to address the issue. Ignore what is happening and instead focusing on raising pro-life children. Do not share the belief with everyone. Instead, be selfish and keep these beliefs to yourself. The same applies for homosexual relationships. Be selfish and keep your beliefs to yourself. Being selfish is when someone is caring only for oneself. So be selfish in your personal life. Do not keep up with the Joneses and the surrounding houses, and instead only care about what you have and what you want to accomplish. Selfishness is almost always discouraged, but when it benefits everyone, it is not only acceptable but should be promoted. This selfish mentality works great in these situations, but when thinking about how it relates to gun control, as much as I want it to work, it doesn't. Allowing people to do what they want, as long as it does not negatively affect or harm other people, can become seriously dangerous when weapons as deadly as guns become involved. In my ideal world, gun laws would be non-existent because, as I stated earlier, people would not be harming each other. While this would essentially eliminate the need for guns altogether, there are a lot of different aspects to examine. Non-existent gun laws would allow anyone to own, carry, and operate a gun, and to assume that nobody would resort to violence with this laxity assumes that people are generally good, meaning that they do what is morally right in situations. This is a very idealistic notion because in reality, people are not generally good, resulting in a wide range of issues. When a violent person inevitably obtains a gun, it would incite fear into other people and result in more people owning guns and even misfiring them out of fear. This seems to negate the whole idea that people should be self-regulating as long as there is no harm coming to those around them, but it only contradicts the idea when applied to modern society. If society could develop to a mental capacity where they would behave morally right in all situations, the need for gun laws and even guns in the public's control would be unnecessary. I hope that one day we can reach a point in human development where violence does not arise from fear, because then we could happily live in a society where people could do as they please without telling others what is acceptable and without being told what they can or cannot do. People in America have become overly focused on what people around them are doing, whether it is in the form of abortion, homosexuality, and even displays of wealth. Rather than allowing other people to make choices based on their own beliefs, Americans are pushing their beliefs onto other people. They believe that it is acceptable to force people to comply with ideals that they disagree with. Rather than forcing people to follow the beliefs of another person, Americans should focus on bettering themselves and on their own possessions. This is what I consider being selfish, because people will only be concerned with what they are doing, so they will not be tempted to fall into the keeping up with the Joneses mentality or force their own beliefs onto other people. With the current societal norms and flaws in human nature, this idea of selfishness cannot aid in gun control. If society underwent a major moral development that resulted in a naturally good and less violent attitude, gun laws could be more trusting of people to self regulate. As long as people are aware of how their actions affect people around them and do not harm others, people should be able to do whatever they want.